Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to your air pollution investigation. You will not have to carry out this investigation, similar to your ecosystem one that you did whilst we were in the field. But I want you to do this really, really well so that you can get good marks for it and enjoy learning about it as well. So first of all, you need to come up with a research question, and I've put together a number of resources to help you explore what might be interesting to you. So we're going to look through the next few slides. You can pause this and go to the actual PowerPoint presentation, which I will have on Firefly, and you can explore through them and have a look. So here's the first one, is asthma triggers. Asthma is caused by lots of different things, but the main thing, because we're looking at air pollution, is particulate matter and other pollutants. You can find out more about this by going to Lung Attack. If you go and click on this activity down here, click on the link, it will take you to an activity that will show you what effect this has on our lungs. So we're really thinking about the big picture of air pollution, and there are 4 different kinds of pollutants that you can explore here. Okay, another type of problem that you might be interested in is that as cities grow and we use so many fossil fuels for our lighting, leaving the lights on in big stadiums or even just in car sales lots, the light flushes out all the light from the sky and we can't see the stars anymore. We can't see any kind of planetary systems. So you might not think that's as important as your health, like from asthma, but it's an important part of our environment. Our environment values can encompass the aesthetic beauty. So do you value your environment for its beauty? Is this something that matters to you? Similar to light, but with more effect on the biodiversity, we also have the effect of animals from sound. So here we can learn about all the different kinds of sounds that we have that damage the environment and damage our health as well. There's a list here on this PowerPoint slide, but if you click on the image itself here, you can also go to an article by Lucy Siegel that talks about the link perhaps between sound pollution and the amount of fossil fuels being used. If we're using more fossil fuels, then the engines and the technologies tend to be louder. A bicycle compared to a car, a bicycle is much quieter. But even if we look at an eco-friendly car, a car that's perhaps using batteries or an electric car and burning less fossil fuels, in doing so, the engine tends to be a lot quieter. So is sound somehow linked to the amount of fossil fuels we use? Okay, now for you to pause and actually answer some questions. As I said, you might go back to the PowerPoint at this point and go and research for yourself and then answer these questions. So first of all, you need to come up with this research question, and it needs to be specific and identify the relevant variables. So what will you measure and why do you expect it to change? Make a list of the 6 different types of pollution that I've introduced to you in the past slide. So you've got those 6 in front of you. Which one of those are you interested in finding out more about? Would you like to know more about how light perhaps even damages biodiversity? Or do you want to know more about asthma and how the pollutants affect our physical health? So make a list of them and pick one. Use your chosen measurement then to fill in the missing word in this sentence. So you should end up with the sentence, I think the pollution from the air will depend on, or I think the ozone levels will depend on, and then just leave the sentence incomplete for now. Okay, so go ahead and pause and finish that. Okay, now you're going to complete the whole sentence. So if, for example, you chose something like phosphates, if we're doing water pollution, you guys are doing air pollution, but I think phosphates will depend on, now what am I going to put in there? What do I think it will depend on? Well, I think it might depend on the number of open sewers there are in the region I'm studying. More open sewers, more higher phosphate levels. If your variables, though, are too similar, the investigation is not going to be meaningful. So let me give you an example. If I said, I think the phosphate level in the water will depend on the amount of phosphates in the water. Yeah, if I put a lot of phosphates into the water, then when I measure the phosphates, that's going to be high, but it's not very interesting. And why isn't it very interesting? Well, first of all, I don't find out anything new. If I go and do the study and I can see that people are putting a lot of phosphates, perhaps in the form of laundry detergent, into the water, and I measure it and it's high, I haven't really found out anything new. And then also it doesn't give me any kind of solution. So I need to be able to find out something that perhaps can help me solve it. So, for example, let's go back to phosphate levels. What if I think that the phosphate level in the water might be linked to the average income? Because perhaps the average income in a region is the amount of money they have for installing sewage treatment facilities, and that if they have proper sewage treatment facilities, those in turn will reduce the amount of water pollution that we experience, and then all the knock-on effects that that has. Now that's interesting because first of all it gives me new information about the relationship between income and sewage treatment facilities. Second of all, it gives me a solution. If we increase the average income in that region, we should be able to reduce pollution. And third, if I don't prove my hypothesis, if it turns out that there's no relationship between income and the amount of phosphates in the water, then what have I missed? What is the reason that there are so many phosphates in the water? Perhaps it's that there's some kind of political issue stopping them building a sewage treatment facility, but it helps me to direct into the actual answer that I need in order to solve the problem. So I rule out the issue of income and I move on to the next possibility for solving this problem. So make your research question meaningful. Okay, the next aspect you will get assessed on. So first you get assessed on your research question. Secondly, how are you going to control other variables? It's not good enough to say that you're going to control for them. So for example, I'm going to control for weather, so I will not collect when it's raining. No, that's not good enough. I need to say how I'm going to do that. In that example, I might be looking at weather maps. I might be predicting when it rains and when it doesn't. I need to say in detail how I'm actually going to do that. And then you also need to have your method. So if I were you, I would merge my method and controlling my variables all into one. I would state the variables I need to control. Then I would go into my method and I would have sections on how I will control for this, how I will control for the next thing. So perhaps I'm looking at light pollution and the density of a city. Then I need to control for the size of the city or the affluence of the city, how wealthy it is, you know, and that perhaps being linked to how many fossil fuels it uses. So you know, I need to be able to think how I'm going to control for that. It's not very easy, but you need to think of a method. In the worst case scenario, then you say, I can't control for this, and so when I analyze my results, I will have to take this into consideration. But really, you should be able to try to come up with an investigation where you can control as many of your variables as you can. Okay, you need to list the equipment that you're going to use, and I'm going to give you some introductions in the next PowerPoint about all the different kinds of ways you could investigate air pollution. You need to have instructions. These should be in the form of instructable. Somebody should be able to do this following what you say to do. You need to make the investigation reliable, so you need to make sure that you are collecting enough data and repeating it. And since you're not going to carry this out, remember this could be done under ideal circumstances. You could do this for years. You can do it in different seasons. So there's the limit. You don't really have a limit in what you can do because you don't actually have to carry this out. How will you make it fair? So how are you going to make this a fair test? And this links in, you could really put your control variable method under this section. How will you make it accurate and precise? Looking at some of the methods some people have suggested, they've said, or you could put Vaseline onto a slide and then hang the slides or the cards up and look at the particles and just kind of like look at it. So that's not very accurate or precise. So you need to think about, how are you going to actually measure this? How are you actually going to get a number on it? It can't just be a qualitative answer. Okay, so from there you should be able to start with your research question, and after you've done that as much as you can come and look at the next video and PowerPoint, which will be about the methods.